Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed the easy part of the split because fortunately, it only gets harder from here. Lion into C9 into playoffs. We've got a long road ahead. I'm ready for it. I hope you are too. And welcome to Washington Square Park, a slightly different location than normal. And this is the tiny chair that I'm sitting on that they have in the park. Some things just make sense, I guess. Sure.
Something that I gotta do with both on.
So before we dive into this week's matchups or go around the org, I want to take a minute to stop and just reflect on the last 5 weeks that were. Because, hey, we're undefeated, okay? Going into the second half of this split and playoffs, we're in a very good spot. We're exactly where we wanted to be. But the journey to get there is an important one to take note of because it will reveal some of the bumps along the way that could potentially cause problems later on or could be our strength points. So let's take a look at our early game stats from our 5-0 run so far. Games of LoL unfortunately doesn't have like an easy way for me to compare this to like other splits and other teams and beyond. But the important note is, yes, we did finish at 15 minutes with a plus 852 gold differential, which is the highest of the top 3 teams in the league now between us, Lion, and Cloud9. 81% of the time, we close that out for a win, which is higher than C9 or Lion. Granted, they've also played each other. So again, I would mince that ever so slightly. We did exactly what we were supposed to do, although we did drop games along the way on this journey. We did notably lose one-off games to Sentinels, to Dig, and to FlyQuest while beating DSG and Shopify both 2-0. So I'm not going to say it was perfect, however. Never mind, we're getting kicked out of the smaller chairs. Let me relocate. I'll be right back. 2 things not going in our way right now. First and foremost, the lawn is not open. And second, there's some sort of movie shoot going on right over there. So, yeah, not great. But there's 3 main things I want to touch on when it comes to our opening 5 games, or at least like the 3 highlights and kind of lowlights that I think will define how this goes for the rest. First and foremost is Quid's volatility. We've touched on it a little bit. Sometimes he's fantastic. Other times it's hit or miss. Like the Quid that you get that shows up on the day is going to be very much dependent, especially against the top teams, against Saint, against APA, who can neutralize a bad performing Quid. That could potentially be a problem. But when Quid is performing well, he genuinely is one of the best playmakers in the league. It feels like he just dances on people, and it feels like our team fights are a little bit more mechanically better than everybody else, even if the macro is a little bit behind Lion, who I would say is like the top team in the region right now for that. Second is Jose Dioto is currently on pace to get MVP in this league. We've been calling it out for the last few weeks, but I think it's important to also note that, yes, his 2 stiffest pieces of competition are upcoming, but he has been playing well. His pocket pick Lee Sin got brought out again this past week, and clearly is ban-worthy anytime you're going up against us. It genuinely might be in your best interest not to go against it, unless, like, Inspire might be able to have some more picks that can shut it down later in the game, but when the dude dies, like, once on it, and is just an incredible playmaker in these fights, yeah, no, it's not something that I think you should ever be willing to mess with personally. But obviously, Lee Sin is not Jose's only pick. In general, he has looked like the best player on Team Liquid Alienware this split, hands down, bar none. And I do think the third one to call out is Morgan, actually, who we expected to come in and just be this dominant top laner. And if you look at that 800 gold differential that we have early in the season so far, it's very much spread across pretty much every lane and everywhere. We're just universally getting leads against better teams. But Morgan has had these moments where he hasn't necessarily shown through in the way that you would hope. Now, he's given more time, obviously, but he is still a vet coming over from the LCK. It's not like an LCK challenger, like a Thanatos style. This is somebody who you expect to come over and perform right away. I'm curious to see how he holds up against 2 of the, well, we'll get into one of the other top laners, but Thanatos, yes, clear top 2 in the league. No matter what, though, you can't be upset with a 5-0 start. We put ourselves exactly where we want to be, and how we close it out from there is entirely on us. First seed is easily within grasp. It's just 2 series away, 4 games. That's it. You can even drop a game within both of these series. I don't think anybody would be mad at all. And you go into playoffs as the clear number 1. But for now, it's the battle of the top 3 over the next 2 weeks to see who's who. Around the org, though, we do have to talk about the one move that everybody is talking about. Even though it doesn't necessarily have to do with us, there is an important lesson, I think, to take away from this move, which is the further details that have come out after Castle was picked up by Lion. Yes, we will be playing Castle for the 2nd straight week now, as we played DSG last week and now again this week. And I'll touch on that within the individual matchup, but from the org side, I think this is a really weird move from Lion as time has gone on, because it is very clear that coaching and Rigby did not want to change the roster. This was forced in by management or the players, one or the two. And I think it's going to cause a really weird dynamic personally. Like, yes, they might ultimately be happy with Castle. Castle might be exactly what the team, but my interpretation for them was that Dokla very much was a glue player that allowed Lion to succeed, especially in a world where you have so much negative spotlight on this Lion roster. People genuinely enjoy seeing them lose, and now you have a move like this where they're replacing Dokla whenever, yes, he did have a bad EWC, like, it's not the best look for them. And now you have a squad that is notably 5 players that are none North American. You have 2 green card holders, you have 2 imports, and you have 1 Australian player who counts as NA, but like no native NA talent. And I was thinking about it, like, okay, this is something that I always perceived from the outside in prior to this year as being a Team Liquid thing. And when I looked at our rosters, like, you know, yes, obviously Core JJ has been here for a long time. Nobody's denying that he's not like North America to his core. That doesn't take away from that. It's just a note of like, we have 1 American on our roster in the North American region. It becomes a problem, as mentioned earlier this year, whenever you look at the available spots that come up and then you start picking apart from other regions and other areas. And that's not to say that I don't love every single player on this team. I've grown to love Morgan a lot. I love Jose Dioto, Quid as well, Core and Yon. Like, I love every single one of them. But there is a note that like, you are playing in North America. And if you want to build a brand and build a fandom, you do need to have that centered around North American players, because I genuinely think a lot of people are going to turn against Lion as an org outside of the Spanish fans, which, hey, you know, if that's their audience and they want to go with, and, you know, they just genuinely care about Lion over everything else, then perfectly fine. But you have to play into the system that ultimately you were trying to develop from. If this was a global league, global circuit, I don't think it would matter at all. Oh, that dog is cute. But it is NA. And nobody here has been able to solidly build a brand. And it's a warning sign, because I think Lion is going to fall down the trap that 100 Thieves fell into back in 2022 when they had the exact same thing. And guess what? They couldn't really build a brand from it all that well. I hope as an org we are looking at what Lion is doing right now and seeing kind of like a little bit of a reflection in the mirror of what like the perception of Team Liquid was for a good like 3 or 4 years now. Yes, obviously it has turned around through the promotions of APA, of Yawn, of Harry and beyond, but it's not like there weren't rotating carousels of players prior to that I think a lot of people still associate the Team Liquid brand of. Whenever people look at this Lion versus Team Liquid matchup, I do think it is going to be a lot of like, okay, these are the 2 orgs that clearly are like the most aggressive in terms of, hey, import slot opens up, go get somebody else elsewhere, because we want to win. But what does it matter if nobody's watching if you're winning? Just an important note that I hope people like understand, and on the org front like really take into account, because I'm sure there have been people that have said this, but I don't know if there's been people that have like really been like as out and loud about this when it comes to TL content of like, hey, it is important in North America to genuinely be contributing to a brand that people believe represents our region. And that's a very delicate balance to strike, which so far, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if anybody from this region over the last like 5 years cumulatively has even struck that chord, clearly. Speaking of that, the one other around the org thing that I do want to mention is that it feels like we're in kind of a dead period for the organization as a whole. Like, during these times is when I would really hope that there's like content coming out. I check both the Team Liquid main YouTube channel as well as our individual one. Granted, something might come out on the day of me posting this, so then that ends the 2-week drought, but there's been like nothing, and it feels like there's not as many interviews. There was the Steve content piece, like the CEO stuff between him, Jack, the Sentinel, Rob Moore, and then NRG's owner. But like, in terms of pushing brand value, like that was a macro level conversation, great. But I can't say that there's been anything over the last 2 weeks that has really felt like it's really kind of connected me further with the Team Liquid brand. I'm just like, it feels like there's nothing. Like, you have games, but like you need more than just games to build culture. You do. You need the conversation to continue well beyond that. And I don't think anything's really happened over the last 2 weeks. And that's a shame. Like, there's nothing else that I really feel like I can talk about, or like these interesting content pieces, moments, whatever you might have it. Like, just, I don't know. Seems like we're in a dead period. And now that we're getting close to playoffs, that's whenever you would think that that type of stuff would start decreasing, because you're going to start focusing on games. The dead, or like the regular season points, is where you would maximize. I don't know. Just something, if you're in the TL org and you're watching this by chance, something to think about. I would have thought this would have been the period that something would have came out. But as for this week's series, as you probably saw by the thumbnail, yes, it's the repeat matchup against Castle. But this Lion one, I'll be honest with you, weirdly scares me more than the C9 one, because I think the individual talent of the players on this Lion roster are something that we should be, eyes open about. Berserker has been on form as of late. I think they just posted his player of the week stat. He's plus 800 gold in the series. I didn't check individual stats to 100% verify that he's head and shoulders above everybody else, but Berserker on a late game carry right now feels like the most potent ADC in the league, whereas Yawn has not played those hyperscaling ADCs, nor have we really had games that get to the point where I guess it's a combination of game and champion. I just feel like Berserker right now, if you're asking me between the two of them, who has had more opportunities to carry so far this split and done so, it would be Berserker, and that's something that you have to keep an eye on. The support battle I still give to Core JJ on the macro front. I think even though Isles has looked better, I do think that we have an advantage right there. Mid lane is going to just be what Quid shows up on the day. If Quid shows up in his fullest form, he should be able to at least go even with Saint, because when Saint's playing well, Saint's good. If Quid shows up and it's bad, you will see a pretty massive gold lead in the mid lane towards Lion specifically, and that's a lane that Inspire will play through, and they will win. This is not the Saint that early on in the year was chucking gold leads. He is now a Saint that if you give a little bit of resources to him, he is able to carry some of these games and win you series. So it is something that you should be... So I know this is going to be a repeated message of just hey, you got to show up on the day. You got to play. But that's ultimately what these high-level matchups come down to, is just who's there on the day. And more than anything, we need Morgan to show up more than he did last week. Because if you look at the end gold graph, or if you look at the gold leads later in the game for every lane from our series against DSG, Morgan was down in both of them. We had leads everywhere else, but he was down 2K, 3K. And if that lead is there and also everything else is more even, that's going to be a problem in these series. So Morgan, I need you to step up, brother. This is going to be a big week for you to really level up in a direct matchup that you faced last week. Granted, the champions might be different, but we need that lane to be even or as close to it as it possibly can be going into these team fights, because we know Lion's strength is these mid to late game fights where Inspired is able to track and then neutralize, and then they will counter as you try and make plays. Because I think one of our biggest strengths is Jose is a great playmaker. Same thing with Core JJ. But if Inspired is tracking you and they're able to collapse on the other people like they consistently do this split, then yeah, it could potentially be a problem for us. I think my key for us this series, other than good drafts, which I know have been an off and on problem at points, looking at EWC qualifiers and leaving that Gnosis open and having relatively no damage against it. One, we got to have decent drafts. If we don't have decent drafts, they're just good enough that they will beat us. But most importantly, I think we need to be decisive and quick with those decisions. If you put yourself in these situations where Inspired can track you, where Isles can get eyes on you, they will make a decision first. Inspired is very quick on the call, so we need to all be together, all be on the same page, and whether a decision's right or wrong, we can deal with that after the game. Just be together, be decisive. That's my view from the outside in. I know Spawn probably is looking at this this dude's just speaking general gibberish. Well, that's my perception. I'm worried about these fights going 25, 30 minutes, and we go for a flank, and it just doesn't work out. It seems like that always happens against Lion. But obviously, we're good enough to beat them. I stand by that. I think we should be able to win this series 2-1. I actually do hope it goes the distance and that we are tested a little bit going into that C9 matchup, because that's the one that I don't want to lose over anything. But it'd be really cool to be undefeated going into that. So that's going to be it for me here, folks. I'm going to wrap this up, go home, edit this, and get it done. I think I'll probably have it announced shortly after this, but we are going to be watching the Team Liquid versus Cloud9 series here in New York City at OSNYC next Saturday. So if you're in the area, come by, come watch. I'll try to do something special for any Team Liquid fans. I haven't figured out exactly what I want to do yet, but I promise you I will try and do something. And hope you all enjoy the games. We got the last game of the week, I think, on Sunday. Should be a fun time.